Welcome, Himanshu. My name is Anilji. We spoke to each other yesterday.
Yeah. Hi. Good evening. Good afternoon.
Hello. So
Good
glad you're with us here today. So, to begin the proceedings, I'll request our managing partner, Ranjit, to say a few introductory words about XPM, the partnership that we work with. Ranjit, over to
Sure.
you.
Yeah. So, welcome. I just want to introduce XPM. We are a specialist in transition management. And by that, we mean we focus on projects, performance, and crises and interim management. We started about 20 years ago in Paris, about 8-9 years ago in India. We have 9 partners throughout India, Mumbai, Delhi, Bangalore. We're also active in the Middle East. We're part of something larger called the Will Group. So we have affiliates in all over Europe and in Asia. We've been active in the steel industry, chemicals, engineering, pharma, IT. We've done a number of turnarounds, performance improvement, growth, also shrinking, helping companies downsize. So that's basically it in a nutshell. Our style is very entrepreneurial. So each of our partners has his or her own set of clients, and we collaborate extensively. So that's a quick introduction on XPM, and looking forward to hearing your thoughts.
Thanks, Ranjit. Allow me to say a few words about Himanshu. I was in two minds where to begin. So I'm going to begin with what I found very exciting, which is that he's a long distance runner. He runs marathons. He's run the Berlin Marathon. He's done the Amsterdam Marathon. And, it's great to have a marathon. Otherwise, in his professional life, he is the CEO of Unlimited, which is a part of Arvind Lifestyle Fashions. And this business is part of the, as they say it, aspirational fashion, which is affordable. And they use a unique word called phygital as their way to access the customer. Part of which is an extensive set of stores in Maharashtra plus online backing. So it's an exciting times to look at the retail industry. As we know, there are so many things that are changing, from consumer to consumer behavior to distribution to branding to pricing. Technology is coming in. So it's really great to have an expert in this area speak to us. To begin with, maybe Himanshu, you can, introduce to us the structure of the market, who the players are, what is your business, and what do you see as the challenges going forward, given the circumstances? So over to you, Himanshu.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Anilji. Thank you, Mr. Shastri. So what I will do is, to begin with, let's just go through a little bit of the history of Unlimited. Where does it come from? How did it come into being? And where were we before this entire COVID-19 thing struck us? So we'll just move ourselves back to, let's say, multiple years, right up to March when the COVID thing happened, and see where we were in terms of as a company. So Arvind Group, as you know, has essentially two large businesses. One is the manufacturing part of the business, which is run out of Ahmedabad, and then they have the fashion and the lifestyle business, which is run out of Bangalore. So anybody who's familiar with Bangalore would know that we have fairly large operations, which is based out of the Bangalore office, and that's run. And then you have the huge manufacturing operations, which are run largely out of Ahmedabad. So these got demerged at some point of time and became independent companies, separately listed, etc., etc. As part of Arvind Fashion, there are multiple brands. So largely there are international brands. Many of the brands you would have heard of. So you have Gap, you have Sephora, you have US Polo. Then there are some of the brands which have been created and launched in the Indian market by Arvind Group over a period of time. Some examples of well-known brands of that would be Newport and Flying Machine, which probably would be familiar brands. In the midst of all this, at one point of time, there used to be a format called Megamart, which I guess would be a familiar name. So Megamart came into being saying that it came in from the ethos of the group itself, saying that we understand brands and we understand premium brands. And therefore, the whole idea was to sell brands at a discount. And therefore, you had everybody who wanted to get rid of their previous season merchandise, yeah, could actually use Megamart as the mechanism for you to liquidate. Many of the consumers also, large number of consumers also like the idea, because those very desirable brands, not just from Arvind Group, but from all over, those very desirable brands were now available to you at a significant discount on an ongoing basis. So therefore, it became aspirational brands became extremely approachable, and Megamart set in. So Megamart was doing quite well, and it also managed to therefore create competition. This was the first off the block, but there were other competitors who came in. The most notable one being Brand Factory, which is still there, and most of you would be familiar with that. Yeah. Around 2013-14, there were some changes in the government rules, which essentially was around the taxation on apparel, and that made a huge difference to this business model. But that was just a trigger, because it was realized at that point of time that with e-commerce coming in, the ability of e-commerce to actually discount heavily these well-known brands would be far more, and the ability of those platforms without a fixed cost to discount much more heavily would probably be far more attractive for the customers than a physical brick and mortar store format with its own cost structure trying to run that. And at that point of time, therefore, there was a full-fledged exercise which was carried out with BCG, Boston Consulting Group, and the whole idea of a private label format came out. Yeah, we would like to have a private label format, and this would be at the aspirational but the affordable end of the market. Yeah, and that's how Unlimited came into being. In the first phase, which is around 2015 onwards, quite a few of the old, now Megamart used to be fairly large, very large stores, and this format didn't require to be so large. So therefore, some new stores were opened and some of the old stores were converted to Unlimited. Over a period of time, we became largely a South dominated player. So we have our presence, extensive presence in Bangalore, Hyderabad, Chennai, and some of the other markets like Madurai, Coimbatore, many markets here, many tier 1 and tier 2 towns in southern India. And then we also launched a few stores in the western part of the country. So we have quite a few in Maharashtra, not in Mumbai, but in Maharashtra. So we have in Pune, we have in Sangli, etc., etc. And then we also have 1 or 2 stores in Gujarat. But large presence is in the southern part of the country, and we have close to around 90 odd stores. These stores on an average are around 10 to 12,000 square feet stores, very large. Yeah, mostly private label. And within this, we have our own retinue of brands. And some of these brands you'd be familiar with, but they only are within the Unlimited stores. So these are brands like Ruggers, these are brands like Excalibur. Some of those names may, if anybody who's from the south, the names would sound familiar. So that's how we were running our business and working on it. And that is when around this time when COVID happened. But don't forget that while we were going through this, the market had already started slowing down, significantly slowing down. And therefore, it was not as if this happened as suddenly. Of course, it happened suddenly, but market was already slowing down. So we were already trying to, all our formats were trying to figure out how to grapple with the situation of the slowdown in the economy in the market. In terms of the competitive set, we have, in terms of the competitors, we essentially have 4 brands which we compete with actively, 4 formats. One is FBB, which is a part of Future Group, Fashion by Big Bazaar. They have standalone stores. They also have a large number of stores which are a part of Big Bazaar. So if you enter a Big Bazaar store, you'll normally go through FBB stores. Then you have the second competitor, which is Pantaloons, which used to be Pantaloons or a Future India company. Now from there it moved hands, and it is now owned by Aditya Birla Group. So that's the other competitor. Then we have a competitor called Max, which is a part of the Landmark Group from Dubai. They also run a better known chain, Lifestyle, but in any case, Max is bigger than Lifestyle now, equal to bigger than Lifestyle, almost similar actually, not equal to bigger. Then you have the fourth one, which is the most aggressive in the market in terms of expansion, in terms of footprint, is Reliance Trends. That's the Lifestyle store from Reliance. So these are the four primary competitors, and most all the other three have a very large geographical presence across the country. We are largely south-based, but we are fairly strong in the markets that we are present in, and we tend to be fairly well known in the markets that we are in. So that essentially is, and don't forget that this segment has got quite a few large volume players. Yeah, just to give you an example, we are close to slightly less than 1,000 crores. Yeah, but the other competitors like a Max or a Pantaloons or an FBB are all in the region of 3,000 to 4,000 crores each top line. Yeah, so fairly decent segment, and Reliance Trends is bigger and expanding very, very rapidly. So therefore, each of the players is fairly large player in terms of the turnovers. So that is where we were, and we were crafting and working on our work, which is when COVID happened, 19 happened. Yeah, and of course, life changed for everyone. We don't know where it is going to lead us to, and I think today's discussion is in terms of going through what we are going through currently, what our thinking is, what the industry thinking is within our segment, and what do we think will happen or is happening. These are all, of course, as I said, these are, nobody knows for sure. These are all our own assumptions, our own experiences, our own intuition in terms of saying what can happen, but nobody knows how it will play out. We know how it played out in the last few months, and but we don't know how it is going to play out in the future. So we are working on how it can play out in the future. Yeah, there are quite a few things that we need to tackle. Now we can go through this in my own way of narrating it, but if you want to ask specific questions, we can do that, Manjit. But essentially, there are three phases. One is during lockdown, one is immediately post lockdown, and then is the slightly more longer term for the business.
Himanshu, why don't you begin the way you planned it, and as we go along, we will, talk.
Sure.
Yeah, I think we have about a total of 1 hour, and we should have 20 or 30 minutes for questions.
Sure. So let's start with what happened during the lockdown, when the lockdown happened. Yeah, I think like any other business, I think our entire industry, the first thing that we did, like any business, there was no difference in how we reacted. Was the first and foremost thing was the safety and security of people. That's the first impulse. That's the first thing to check. That's the first thing to make sure that everything is fine. Nobody has tested positive. There are enough precautions in place. Of course, the office shut down, and then very quickly the stores started shutting down in different markets. And then of course, there was the lockdown, which was announced by the Prime Minister, and therefore everything shut down. Yeah, but that didn't happen on that day. At least for 8-10 days before that, between the offices and the stores, the shutdown process had started from almost around mid-March, is when or maybe 12th, 14th of March, which is when the process had started. So the first thing was in terms of making sure that people are safe and secure. How do we ensure that? The next thing was in terms of ensuring that there was the safety and security of the premises. Our stores, for example, are largely standalone stores. There are a few of them which are in malls. Malls provide safety security on its own, but these standalone stores needed to be taken care of, because with the lockdown, as you know, most of the migrant labor, including therefore the security, disappeared from the stores. Yeah, so that opens you up to the risks of all kinds of things of the store, and also you need to make sure that. So we actually had we had to get our store managers to stealthily go into the stores, take out the cash and deposit it in the banks. Yeah, so that we don't have that risk on us. The risk on the property side, we had most of our stores covered through round the clock surveillance, but some of them didn't have enough cameras, some of them were not under the surveillance. So the first thing that we did was to get that done as the lockdown started happening. This is before the Prime Minister announced the lockdown for the entire country. So we taped up all the stores from the surveillance point of view. And mall stores, we didn't have to bother much because that in any cases, security is provided by the. So that was the safety of people and safety of your assets, safety of cash that you have. So impulsively, those were the first things that we did. Yeah. And then of course, started this whole affair of saying, oh my God, now there's going to be no cash flows. Yeah. There is going to be zero cash flows. So what do we do? And that is where the whole thing started, saying that let's look at everything. Let's look at the bank limits that we have. Let's look at the amount of cash that we have with us, and how do we plan this out. Yeah. One of the broad principles that we applied at that point of time, that at least during the phase of this of the lockdown, we will not do any sort of, let's say, people optimization in the cost cut. Post that, we will do what is required for business. But at least during this phase, when everybody is already down with all anxieties in the world, we will not do this. And also during this phase, even if you were to do, let's say, people optimization, there is no way anybody could hunt around for an alternate employment. Once the lockdown goes out, then at least you can start doing it. So so that's one call that we took early on, that we will have the entire set of people. We will decide on the optimization post reopening, depending on the situation. But all the other costs that we could, we immediately started attacking, which is right from your simple things like all the ad agency retainerships that we had, the digital agency retainership that we had, the retainership that we had with the consultants in various fields. We discontinued, not discontinued actually, we put that in abeyance for the period of COVID. We sent out letters and we put everything in abeyance, saying we will not be able to pay you through this period, and the contract is therefore going to be in abeyance for the lockdown period until the time that we come back into the picture. So that was one piece that we needed to do in terms of the entire cost structure, and it included everything that you can think of. Every cost that we could cut, we cut across the board. And not only us, I think everybody has done that, because you have to survive through this. And of course, we went through the whole thing of trying to form our opinion as a group. And therefore, as part of Retailers Association of India, we started knocking at the doors of government. I was there part of some of them, my colleagues were part of some of the committees. But essentially, as a body, we started approaching both the Reserve Bank of India, as also approaching the government functionaries. Yeah. This was something which was in a way a false hope, because we made so much of, and I was involved actively in one of the committees which was on culling out data and the background, what's happening in other places, and our own employment data, etc., in the industry, and therefore what the government needs to do. But net, finally, when we emerged out of this and we are virtually through with everything, including the much touted 20 lakh package, virtually there is nothing. So actually, we ended up spending humongous amount of time and energy, and I think we would have spent it much more productively if we had, and also built up false hopes across the industry, which probably we should have realized right in the beginning. Nothing is going to come our way. If anything comes, take it as a bonus. But I think what happened is, internally, I think at some point of time, we took a call after we saw that there was nothing much that was happening on the help from either bank, the RBI or the government, is saying that, look, we need to manage everything within what we have. So therefore, how do we make this last? So then started the whole painful process. The whole painful process was in terms of looking at What will this business look like when it reopens? How do we therefore go around negotiating rents? How do we go around negotiating all kinds of other things which are there? Housekeeping, security. How do we go around eliminating every cost which is not required? Store music system, which is covered by whoever is familiar would know, PPL and IPRS. Yeah. How do I have royalty-free music playing? Legal, but how do I therefore not have music where I need to pay royalty? Every cost element that one could think of, every cost element was looked at, and I think many of the companies did that, and most companies would have done that, and but we had no other option to go through everything. Uh, so anyway, so this was the phase. But in the midst of all this, what we also did was we connected with customers. So we kept doing lots of things on social media. We created quite a few videos which were virtually zero cost videos by our own team and sent to customers. Then in little things about safety, security, how they can use their existing clothes, how they can take care of the clothes when there is no help around, etc., etc. And also we engaged with them on certain other things in terms of trying to tell them that, look, you can place orders if you want now. When the market opens, we will supply to you, and you can decide at that point of time whether you want it or you don't want. But lots of engagement with the customers. But anyways, that engagement was more for, I think, to just keep the dialogue going. In a way, it is not a meaningful dialogue, as we all know. But I think in times of crisis like this, long periods, any dialogue is a good dialogue to have. And therefore, we had that dialogue. We also had the dialogue with our other partners in the ecosystem, for example, suppliers. So one of the great anxieties that they had is that we will not honor the purchase orders. Yeah, and that's a big one. So we had a dialogue with each of them, saying that can you defer uh, the drops into our warehouses? Can I come back to you? So they wanted to know whether we will honor the orders or not. So that's one of the calls that we again took, that we will defer, and if required, we'll defer more and more and more. And within that, of course, on the orders that we had, we chatted with the vendors, and there's a humongous amount of time spent there, saying that if you have not placed any order with your fabric supplier, and if you have not placed your order with the trim supplier, then don't do it. Wait, we will again have a chat. Don't trigger anything further. But wherever you have got the fabric and the trims, we will take it, and we will give you, as the market opens up, we will give you a deferred timeline to accept it. So that is the another piece of negotiation which happened, and discussion that happened with our ecosystem around us. Then the other one, which was the biggest one for us in terms of the discussions and the negotiations, was with the landlords. Now, landlords typically are of two types. One is the standalone stores. So these are high street landlords. And just imagine, these are stores which are large stores, 10, 12, 15,000 square feet. So in the middle of a big market, big street, yeah, you have this large building. So people who actually give out these large buildings to us on rent, commercial buildings, they are fairly well known in that area. They'll be fairly well known in that area. So that is one, which is the standalone. So we have 75% of our stores are standalone. And then we have another 25 odd percentage of stores which are in the malls. Now, what we found is, with these standalone stores, we could get into a dialogue fairly quickly. Yeah, quite a few of them agreed early on, as we were going through the lockdown, to a waiver of the rentals during the lockdown, or a significant waiver of the rentals. Not all, but a large number. On the other hand, the malls was much more difficult. They just wouldn't budge an inch. Yeah, and they would keep saying, let it reopen, and then we will discuss. Now we all know that if it reopens and we open the store, then the ability to discuss something becomes difficult. And the reality is that the walk-ins are going to be very slow. We all know that. How much slower, we wouldn't know, but it'll be fairly slow and low. And therefore, if the business pickup is not going to be there, we need to have some sort of an arrangement, both for lockdown period and the post the lockdown period, till the time normalcy returns, which is going to be a fairly decent period of time, some sort of an alternate arrangement with the So as a result of which we formed a body within RAI for rental negotiations, and uh, 8, 9 of us are part of the steerco there. But essentially, our whole thing is to push the malls to work in a manner which is going to help our businesses survive, both theirs and ours. So don't forget, malls business itself is under threat, and for them to then have a mass exodus of the retailers or the brands is again not a very viable proposition. So we formed that, and I was of course representing entire Arvind, all the portfolio brands there in the steerco. So that has yielded decent amount of results. Some of the malls have been quite proactive. Forum Mall in Bangalore or other places, Forum Mall, which is Prestige Group, has been very proactive. And a surprise announcement has come from DLF last evening, which is again very proactive announcement. Now, other malls are still resisting, but I think we need to find a viable way forward for both the retail and the malls, knowing that the losses are going to be low for a fairly good period of time going forward. But along this, while we are doing all this, comes in the opportunity side. Yeah, and the opportunities lie in various things. The first one, of course, is the whole thing which makes the whole system far more productive. So this has actually helped us in getting rid of lots and lots of inefficiencies which happen in an organization over a period of time. So everything has become very efficient. Yeah, we'll dwell at some point of time with how we have done it in the back end, but everything has become more efficient. And therefore, both from the time and the cost angle, things have become faster. The second one is the opportunity from the customer end. And I think from the customer end, the opportunity is very clearly in terms of the customer being reluctant to come into the store, or even if he or she comes into the store, would not like to spend too much time there. And therefore, the whole idea of the opportunities that are there, both in the pure e-commerce world as well as in the phygital or the online to offline world. So those are huge opportunities which are there, which need to be tapped, which need to be, and it makes customer the journey for the customer that much easier. Then the whole payment solutioning space, which is again a great opportunity for all retailers. So we have taken a lot of a leap in that direction. We can cover the specifics, but I think for all retailers, again, payments is something which is going to be very, very important from the customer's point of view, and we can cover that. Last but not the least, I think this has also helped us look at our let's say the business model itself per se, and say what part of the business we need to let go, and what part of the business we need to keep for the future. So while we do this, go through this whole exercise, I think it is a sort of a catharsis that we are going through, and both the body and the soul would probably, I don't mean it will be damaged, but it will change, and I think it is going to be a different kind of entity that will emerge as we come out of this. But having said that, yeah, this whole experience in terms of what will happen, what will not happen, whether we will be successful, not successful, we don't know. But we have been working very aggressively, working on the plans. There's a lot of positive energy also which has happened. Competitors have come together, which is rarely the case. We're working very closely with each other because the issues are the same, the problems are the same. The solutioning may differ from organization to organization, but we can arrive at better solutioning. And of course, this is the period when entire ecosystem is, while it is competing with each other, while it has got commercial interests which compete with each other, whether it is malls and us, landlords and us, whether it is vendors and us, whether it is competitors and us, we are probably cooperating far more than we would have done in the past, ever in the past. So yeah, that's where we are currently.
So Himanshu, would you like to take us through, how do you plan to tackle these permanent changes that are going to take place? This could mean either the way you market your product or the way your business processes run to supply the product, or the use of technology to, manage the business going forward in a competitive manner.
Okay, so let's take one example each as illustration, yeah, of both one front end and one back end process. Let's take one front end and one from the customer side, and we'll take one example from the back end. We'll start with the back end first. In the fashion industry, essentially it operates in two cycles, broad cycles. One is called spring summer, and the other one is called autumn winter, yeah, which I think all of us are familiar with. Now, these cycles essentially would mean that if you're looking at your spring summer next year, in the normal course for spring summer next year, this is the time of the year, which is now we are sitting in June. You are through with your autumn winter order placements, yeah, and you would be actually starting to actively work on the spring summer next year, which is 2021 spring summer. Now, what would happen with that is essentially you'll go through the next 2, 3, 4 months of designing and sampling and looking at everything and costing and supplier base and everything. And finally, you would start releasing orders around, let's say it's August, September is when you'll start releasing orders for drops to come in from December end, January beginning onwards for spring summer. Yeah. Now, as you would realize, this is a long cycle and it does not take in business unpredictability into account. And now from a predictable business, now the swing of our business or anybody's business, you know that, would be typically 10 to 15%. Yeah, I think we all know that. If you do very well, you will be growing like to like at 15 or 20%. If you don't do so well, you'll be probably at 0%, 4%, 5%, -2, -3, whatever. But the range is not that huge. Yeah. So that makes. So therefore, there is a significant amount of predictability to what's going to happen in the normal course. Now let's cut to the current situation. This kind of unpredictability is unthinkable. Yeah, we don't know. Now, for example, one quick one, while the numbers are low after we have reopened these standalone stores, one quick thing is in the mix, kids wear, which would be typically around 17-18%, has shot up to 34% of our mix. Okay, and for some odd reason, yeah, all the bottom wear segments across men, women, menswear, women's wear, they have collapsed. Yeah. Now, of course, we can look at the reasons why it is happening. We can all understand why it is happening. Yeah, but that's at this point of time. What else is going to happen over the next few months? We don't know. The malls opened, and we opened our stores with many of the malls last 2 days. Forum being one of the primary malls, both in Hyderabad and Bangalore. The walk-ins are 1/10 normal walk-ins. There's virtually nobody in the malls. Yeah. Don't go by the PR numbers that you read in the newspapers. Yeah, those are the PR numbers that they're pushing through from the malls, and rightly so. I think we are with them on this, but the reality is something very, very different. There is no walk-ins in the malls. So when will it pick up? How much will it pick up? Which categories will pick up? What will they buy? What will they not buy? Yeah, we do not know. Earlier it was only about what designs will sell. That was the variable. Yeah, now which category, which subcategory will sell? We don't know. How much will it sell? How much will it pick up? Yeah. Now, therefore, the significant, humongous unpredictability to this whole demand pattern requires you to have shorter cycle of ordering, not the old long cycle. So therefore, we have now worked on to this phase, and we are ready. In fact, our orders have just gone out this round, which is a 2-month cycle. So everything is baked in for 2 months with course correction. So it's algorithmic. Luckily, we have a lot of technology. I'll not get into that. If anybody has interest, can connect with me. It cannot be done through regular methods. But the thought is very clear, which is in terms of the much shorter cycles. So in the month of June, now we are procuring for August and September. Yeah. And if you recollect earlier, I told you for August and September earlier, we used to place the orders. We used to start working on the range end of last year and used to place the orders by Jan, Feb. Yeah. Now we're doing in much shorter cycles of 2 months. So that's the back end process change. And that also gives us the flexibility if some brick is moving, not moving. The front end, on the front end side, as I said, that you have from the customer's angle, the customer is today wanting to not probably go to the stores, or even if they go to the store, they don't want to spend time. Therefore, we have launched our phygital solution. Essentially, customers get to see our local store on their app or on the web. So if you are a customer of CMH store, you will get to see CMH store. So essentially all the inventory which is there, you'll not get to see the entire system inventory. And then our store teams would, and that's where the whole thing of keeping the employment going comes in, because the productivity would drop otherwise. The store teams actually deliver the merchandise to you within the next 4 hours, 4 to 5 hours. Yeah. We, along with that, give you the flexibility all through technology. We give you the flexibility because it's our own store guy who's coming in. Our trial rooms are shut in the store, so you can't try out. So it gives you the flexibility of actually exchange. So you can trigger an exchange. Our guy will go and pick it up. And you can also do size alteration. Not my apologies, length alteration. So most of us know that for if you buy trousers, you need length alteration. So that is normally done in the store. So if you don't want to come to the store, you can trigger it, and our guy, because he's from the store, will take your measurement, take the merchandise, or before delivering itself, if you tell us, then we will make that. Simultaneously, it also has the feature for you to collect from the stores. So in case you want to come to the store, but you don't want to go inside and spend time, then you have a digital token with you. So at the security itself, if you tell him your digital token, he takes it out from the pigeon box and gives you your packet. Yeah. So so we are adapting to this through technology, and it's going to help. Along with that, we have increased our presence on all the marketplaces, online marketplaces. So that online business is up almost 100%. It's 2x of before COVID. So that number is humongously up. We are a bit more fortunate because when in the scenario that we are in, the affordable end of the market will suffer much lesser because there's active down trading which is already happening. People are down trading. So therefore, if you are at the affordable end of the market, which is where we are, we will for sure gain over the foreseeable future, because there'll be a lot of people who will be questioning why they should be paying 1999 or 2499 for a polo when they can get a almost similar or maybe exactly similar quality with a different brand name at 599 rupees. Yeah. So those are questions which would happen when you start looking at your own household budgets and decide on what you need to prioritize. Health will get prioritized. Of course, education will get prioritized. Food and grocery will get prioritized. And then because of the uncertainty and the loss in income which most people are going through, there will be also deprioritization. So when you deprioritize and even when you want to indulge, the indulgences are going to be probably done with and that's why the premium end of the market, you've read everywhere, there's revenge shopping going on. But that has dissipated within 2-3 weeks. While the value end actually is picking up week after week. It's going up from the time that it reopened. While the premium end of the market started off with a huge bang because there was a pent-up demand and revenge shopping, but that's gone down now. But this whole ecosystem of the consumer to access us at any point of time and get goods delivered, altered, changed, size change, exchange, everything done from home is the feature on technology that we built during the shutdown period.
Great, Himanshu. I think we've just, I would say, scratched the surface of all the processes that exist in managing the retail business. Since we are now going to have shortage of time, I'll request that we stop here and open this to questions from the partners. Ranjit, you have a question to begin?
Yes. Yes, I had a question on your sourcing. What percent of the products that you sell are imported and what percent are domestically sourced?
So for us, almost 90% is domestic. Just around 10% is imported. Out of 10%, around 4-5% is accessories, which are largely imported. and we have a bit of bottom wear which is imported from Bangladesh.
And do you see that changing? Do you think as part of your strategy for either kind of what is the word you use, down market, moving a little bit towards the down
Down
market?
trading, yeah.
Down trading, yes. As part of that strategy or part of your cost reduction strategy, are you looking to cast your net wider in terms of sourcing?
So yes and no. What will happen is that unfortunately, you will have a situation where quite a few of the suppliers will not survive through this crisis. That's an unfortunate reality. And therefore, while we may love them and we may have had a long relationship, unfortunately, we are also not in a position to pull them out. If they are only dependent on us, then it is okay. We can work out some way or the other. But if we are 20, 25% or 15% of their business, and they're not able to survive through the crisis, and which is a reality, 25, 30% of the supplier base with the largely MSME suppliers. Yeah. So they will not survive through this crisis. And we do not know the number, like it's a guesstimate. Yeah. But I think we need to have sourcing which is far more agile, far more flexible. I wouldn't use the term opportunistic because I think that's bad. It'll hurt us if we use that approach, which means we can always go to people, leave our suppliers and go to suppliers who are in distress and try and strike deals. But that's extremely short term. Maybe we'll make a few crores here there, but it's short term because then your regular supplier would for sure collapse, and then it is not going to be a long term fix, and it doesn't work that way. So while the opportunities are there, one needs to be very careful in how you do it. But at the same point of time, because as I said, what's going on in the environment, the reality is that this is how it will be. It means that 25-30% of the network will not be there, and therefore we need to be very flexible with our approach. Also, don't forget that we are being careful in terms of how much we are ordering. So the whole established norms of minimum order quantities are getting busted. So there's the whole in apparel trade, there's the whole thing of minimum order quantities. And that is something which we can't, even if we feel it will be, we will not take that risk. We would much rather order in 2 lots. So if I need 1,000 units pieces for one style, let's say as an example, yeah, I'll still not order 1,000 units per style. I'll order 500 and maybe another 500, both from cash flow as well as the de-risking point of view. I'll probably order in maybe I'll order one style at 500 now, and maybe another style or the same style 500 a month later, rather than ordering for 2-3 months in one shot minimum order quantity of 1,000 units. So lots and lots of things will change and is changing, and we need to be extremely agile, all of us, and connected and work through that.
Thank you.
I think Sushil, you had a question, correct?
Yeah, Himanshu. Hi, good evening. Thanks for a very insightful, discussion till now. See, pre-COVID and post-COVID, I'm sure there were a lot of opportunities in the apparel industry which you had, and some of them might have become unviable today, and some new ones would have emerged, and saying not only for the country, not within India itself, but on the global platform, be it from unorganized sector brands within the country to exporting overseas, given that Arvind is a large exporter on the jeans and the other kind of products. Now, what are the limitations that you see today in terms of your management bandwidth, or any other limitations that you have, which is stopping you from capturing some of those opportunities, if they are really very viable in the current context? Maybe not immediate, but maybe in a year down the line once the situation normalizes.
So here is the thing on the manufacturing side, which of course I know about, but I don't handle anywhere close to that. But the manufacturing side, which is run out of Ahmedabad, that will have its own opportunities. Now, for example, even during the lockdown period, this was one of the designated plants for manufacturing PPE equipment. In fact, it's one of the largest suppliers of PPE currently. Yeah, so that is an opportunity, and because of the large scale ability of carrying it out at scale, you can always stitch up multiple MSMEs to do it, but in a short time, period of time, it is difficult. You need to catch the big guys to carry it out. So that was an opportunity. In terms of the opportunity with, let's say, the fabric. Now, fabric is something which will sell in any case, and it is used by best of the denim brands around the world. So that will keep selling. But of course, how much more or less it will sell will depend on the global demand per se. Yeah, and therefore it will. On the manufacturing side, and I guess you were maybe wanting to talk about that, which is the opportunity offered by China exits. Yeah, that we are not very big in terms of manufacturing. But having said that, there is some opportunity there. But for the larger players in manufacturing, who are into manufacturing, it's actually a very complex game. We can discuss it at length some other time, but that opportunity is a difficult one to get. Ours is a country which has got delays in every part of the process. Every part of the process is time consuming, and there are no cost advantages in India. In fact, there are none. So if you were to look at all the factors of production, whether it is land, whether it is capital, whether it is manpower, yeah, you are beaten hollow by many of the other countries, right from Vietnam to Indonesia to Bangladesh. Yeah. So therefore, unless and until there is something systemically that is done by the government to tap that opportunity from the point of view of making. Otherwise, to give you an illustration, yeah, we in this country, and we don't have that manufacturing, but I'm talking about from, let's say, if you were to look at the Tirupur exporters, yeah, or large exporters in Ludhiana, on the same garment, which you're getting in China for $3.50, same quality, everything is the same, $3.50, yeah, the international big retailers would get it at $4.1, $4.2 from India. Why would they do it? Why would they do it? And on top of that, the slow process. Everything is slow. Slow ports are slow. Yeah. Everything, clearances are slow. Everything is slow. Yeah. So, while we may want to as a nation flex our muscles and show to the world we are big and great, at an individual level, when those companies are taking their calls, they are taking their calls on clear business decision making. Of course, they need to de-risk China, 100%, no doubt. But the landing opportunity is not, the typhoon, the landfill is not going to be India. It's going to be somewhere else.
Oh.
Yeah. So that's where we are, this is a whole mix. So that opportunity may not happen. But coming back to our own business, which is the brands business and the fashion business, yeah, there is, as I said, tremendous opportunities that'll emerge. Huge amount of opportunities which will emerge. Don't forget that if we have capital access, if we survive through this properly, and then if we have access to capital, we will have for running your retail business, the elements which cost you the most, the cost structure of that is coming down. So let's take rent. If you have capital after you survive through this, if you have capital, yeah, then you will be able to get rentals probably at 25-30% lower than earlier. The rentals stack up to, for most of our business, yeah, right, 10 to 15% of the top line. Yeah, you factor in a 25-30% saving. It essentially means that your business on profitability, overall profitability, can change by 2.5-3%. Sure. Just on that one factor. So there are opportunities galore which will happen, essentially because the supply side is going to shrink.
Sure.
The demand side is shrinking, but supply side is going to shrink as well, significantly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Himanshu, Partho Dasgupta this side.
Yes, Parthoda.
We met in Kashipur, you remember?
Yes, of course.
Okay. I have two questions. One is, I was reading an article by Mr. Jhunjhunwala, the investor. He says the best time of India is coming. In about a year or so, India will be progressing like anything. So what is your take on that? Number two, you talked about keeping your headcount the same. You don't want to disturb the people. But looking at the business that it is, do you have any plans to look at revisit your headcount, and how will you handle that? Because the activities will be the same.
So let's look at the second question first, because that's a straight business question. And let's look at what we are doing there. So the reality is that if the business is down, we can't afford to have same number of people, right? Let's look at the retail stores. So what do we do? Yeah. Therefore, if a store had, let's say, 25 people in the store, yeah, I can't afford to have 50% business and still have 25 people there. So what's the solution? So there are three sets of solutions to this. Yeah. The first solution which is there is the worst one, which is to ask people to leave. But of course, from business point of view, we may not be left with any option at some stage. We may have to do it, but let's take that as the last option and not the first option. In fact, there's something dramatically wrong with the DNA of an organization if that is always the first option. Yeah, but anyways, that debate aside, yeah, that you have to carry out for business, you need to carry out, but there are two other options. And we need to look at the two other options which are available. The first option available to you is to look at whether during this period, when there is a slowdown, whether there are industries which require your people. And can you therefore second out your people? Yeah, as we speak, we have seconded out almost 150 of our people out. Who are these people who require extra people? This is people like Spencer's, which is into food and grocery. The business is rocking. Yeah, people like Amazon, again, business is picked up significantly. So so the arrangement that we have is we keep paying them the salary from our side. We put them on secondment, we put till September. And therefore there's no permanent going away for them. But they go on the same terms or better terms and work there. And they'll come back to me in September and October for season when I need them. So it solves the problem of Spencer's. And that's where the cooperation comes in between people. How do you cooperate with each other during this phase? Yeah. For me, it would have been the same if I had said, ask these guys to go. But do remember, I may need them during season. And also this has an impact on the rest of the people working with us. So it works for everybody. They get to work there. They don't lose their jobs. They get there. That it satisfies the requirement of Spencer's and or Amazon. It takes care of my problem because I don't need to, whatever I'm paying them, I'm getting back from these guys. Yeah. And the fourth silver lining is when the season comes in, when I will struggle for people, these are all going to come back to me because they continue to be on my rolls. So there are creative ways of getting around this issue. Yeah. That's the second approach. The third approach is of shared pain. Yeah. The shared pain is that can people in the stores for the short run until the time business goes up, can they agree to a certain cut in the salaries? Yeah. Do not forget that they are already low paid. Yeah, it's really front end is not very highly paid, and you can't go below minimum wages in any case. But essentially, is to look at whether they can, whether we can have an arrangement with right from store manager to everybody there of a certain for forcible thing. So we have, as of now, struck a deal where we will be paying 20% less till July. April we paid full. May to July, May, June, July, 3 months. Then we'll see. If business is back to normal, everything comes back to normal. We don't know. Yeah. And the third one, of course, which is not a great blessing for us, but from sheer number management, it becomes useful. We need to take is that lot of the migrant staff have not come back even 1 month after reopening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah. Himanshu,
there was another question.
Oh, right, Partho.
Jhunjhunwala.
sorry. So that he knows better. He puts his money in the stock exchange. He knows
Yeah.
better. Really, I think we all have our views, but really my views of is and that's he's talking about in general the bullishness that is going. But I think one thing we need to keep in mind. Yeah, I think what he's saying is right. But as a nation, probably it is going to be our arrogance which is going to to not tap that opportunity, if at all.
No, I can
If
tell
at all
you,
that, yeah.
yeah, Himanshu, I can add something to this. Rakesh Jhunjhunwala for the last 10 years has been saying the same thing. The mother of all bull markets are coming now. So I think these guys, I think they're self-serving interest and keep saying, oh, markets are going to do very, very well. So
Absolutely,
I
absolutely.
don't really take them
Yeah.
very seriously. Yeah.
And he knows better probably because he puts real money in the stock exchange. I
Yeah.
don't put, so
I
he
mean,
would know better than
his
me.
net worth goes up if he comes on TV and says market is going to go up, and at least some retail fellows will go and buy next day. That's what he's doing. Okay, so I want to ask one or two questions, Himanshu.
Yes, sir.
So a few things I note from whatever you described. So one is obviously all of you are getting more efficient thanks to COVID, right? Your ordering cycles are reducing, and you are trying to predict designs a little ahead of time. Hopefully you are getting better to Zara standards of supply chain, which is great. Your costs are going to go down because you're saying retail costs are going down. The other element which is going to help, in my opinion, is this unorganized players are going to go away now. I think, all those mom and pop shops which used to sell, garments, I think 50% of them will go away. So all this whole, build up of the organized sectors and especially retail in your kind of market is just going to become much bigger, right? Third point which I note is that as a lot of people are getting into online ordering, so one model all of you've been doing is, just put your things on Amazon or some other, fashion site, something will be ordered. I think the point now is that of all those who are remaining in the market, let's say 4 of you, potentially businesses coming, you are going to increase your market share vis-a-vis the total market. All of you are going to become more efficient, right? But the game is which one of you 4 will do better than the other. And then what happens, the guy who's left behind is the one who will one day either become very small or it doesn't matter, right? So the game now is how can you think of some, very, very strong differentiation, ideally based on technology or digital side, where you can keep holding your customers in your hand. And I'm talking about something like, can you order trying it at home or something, some technology is emerging. So, I mean, I'm not asking as many questions as I've just picked up from what you said plus my own understanding, but I want your reactions to some of that.
I think you're absolutely right. I think the observation on supply side shrinking. Supply means the retail network that services the demand of the customers. That side shrinking is bound to happen. I think what we can debate is the extent of that shrinkage, which we do not know. It'll play out. We will get to see. We do not know. None of us know. But what is for sure is that will shrink. By how much? The magnitude is not known to any of us. We'll get to see as time progresses. It'll depend on multiple factors on what goes on. But for sure, it'll shrink. As the supply side shrinks, which is the number of shops catering to the same demand of customers, customer side demand at some stage will pick up and come back to normal. We all know that. Whether it's going to take 6 months or 12 months or 18 months is we can keep debating, but that demand will come back to normal at some point of time. And the supply side would have shrunk by then. People who survive through this and specifically organized retail stands to gain. So that point is fully taken and understood. And I think also to be fair in the size of market that India has, with organized retail being so small percentage, I think the concept of the 2 or 3 players dominating or 1 or 2 or 3 players, that probably, to my mind, at least in apparel, is quite some years away. It'll offer the opportunity for multiple players to operate, given the fact that you're a very small portion of the overall trade of apparel in the country. So to that extent, I think that it may, what you're saying is right, but it may be fairly long period of time before that plays out. Yeah. So I wouldn't actually, as of now, I wouldn't really spend too much time thinking of that. But there is a great opportunity, as you pointed out. And the other one that you rightly pointed out is the whole opportunity for the customer who's going digital. And how do we tap that? And we have actually launched for all our store. Each store is now a web front. So you are not there in the cities that we operate in, but each store is a web front. And it offers, you get to see your store, detailing of what is happening, store timings, etc. You order from that store, and the guy from the store comes and tells you, and you get a call from Kamnahalli store saying, sir, I've received your order. My person is going to come across. Then the guy goes and says, I'm Anil from your favorite Kamnahalli store, and the whole thing, exchange, etc. So of course, there are still, we have launched it in 5 stores in Bangalore last week, this whole online to offline. The results are fairly decent. And as it stabilizes, of course, there are operational challenges when you carry it out and want to supply quickly. So, but we should be there through with that during the course of this week, maybe by next week. But in another 10 to 15 days, we will have that live across all our stores. And that is not the end of the thing. There is a whole thing which is conversational commerce. So that is again something that we will be starting, which means you can get into a chat mode with our store team, yeah, on WhatsApp. So you can ask him, show me more options in shirts. I like to wear solid shirts. Show me some more. And the conversational commerce, which is all actually enabled by AI at the back end. So this guy only needs to press solid shirts. That is your query. So he doesn't need to apply his mind as to what those solid shirts are that he needs to recommend. So when he puts that, automatically 20 options will get WhatsApp to you.
Yeah.
So those kind of conversational commerce will happen. You do not know he has got access to all this. Yeah. So to you, it'll look like he's sending you all those images. So yeah, absolutely agree with you. We need to do all that. Absolutely.
Amal, you have a question?
Yeah, Himanshu.
Yes, Dada.
You see, you have had a turnaround all your life, I guess. You see, whether it was, Landmark, Mobile Store, High Care, but this is a mother of all the turnarounds and crisis which we have now. Given the record of, the type of work which you have done in different organizations, different products, what are the skill sets which will be required now and would be at a premium? Where we need to, focus? Are they available in the system? If they are not available in the system, how do I get and access those so that I can tide over this crisis in the shortest possible time?
I think it's a very, very good question. I think, and I will give you my understanding, and it may be right or wrong, but doesn't matter. But my understanding of this, I think one of the things, and it's very funny. Even during this lockdown, I've had 2 sets of people approaching me for turnaround jobs. Yeah, which I've of course said no to because we are in the midst of this and no energy. But that apart. I think the most important trait currently, which is going to be there in people, is their flexibility and agility. Because whatever you have done in the past, yeah, while we always have said this, all of us keep saying this, whatever you have said, done in the past does not hold. And normally we say it for the heck of saying it. It is so true today. It is so true today. In fact, none of the rules that you are accustomed to playing with, none of the mechanisms and methods that you're accustomed to playing with, virtually none of them, other than basic housekeeping and basic ethics of how you work. Beyond that, I think all the methods of working would and ways of thinking would change. I'll give you 1 or 2 quick illustrations of this. Yeah, we have sourcing in our sourcing in Unlimited. We have 1 person who does the sourcing for ethnic, 1 person who does the sourcing for everything else. Yeah. The moment this COVID thing happened, yeah, what the ethnic sourcing guy did is he called up all his suppliers. Yeah. And he said, look, I don't know what is going to happen. Yeah. And please, production to band kar dijiye abhi, don't produce. Yeah. And jo aapke paas pada hua hai, we will figure out, because we told them we'll figure out. Yeah. And he told them that आप साथ में ऐसा भी करिए कि आपने जो फैब्रिक ऑर्डर किया है बट अभी तक आया नहीं है आपके पास, come to you, उसको होल्ड पे रख दीजिए, we'll see later on. Now what has happened is, on the other hand, the guy who handles the other part of sourcing, which is larger part, yeah, he's more old school and more in a certain method, yeah. So his first instinct was, because we were in effect saying that whatever you have produced, I will take delivery of. So his first instinct was actually to maximize that number, yeah, from each supplier. Now that is actually a lack of flexibility going forward, because the moment you do that, yeah, you are killing your own flexibility going forward. While you wanted to be fair and saying whatever you have produced, I'm taking responsibility for it, which is the ethical way, but at the same point of time, to say that I placed an order for so many, let's say 1 lakh units across 100 styles, and suppose he has produced 50, to not verify, and in a way the suppliers coming back and saying I've produced 80,000 already, while the reality is 50,000, yeah, is going to forget about helping him or not. That's a secondary issue. You are reducing the entire your own flexibility in the supply chain so badly by taking that call. So what has happened is, as soon as the lockdown has reopened, the stores have reopened, some of them are trading. Unfortunately or fortunately, between the adult categories, non-kids, ethnic wear is doing well, while menswear and Western is slower. Now, therefore, now you require merchandise. Because of what this guy had done, yeah, he has been able to get supplies within 3 weeks, 2 weeks into the system of what is needed. While the other guy, because it's gone slow, he's now negotiating and spending time on saying कि नहीं अभी नहीं stock भेजिए, 1 महीना बाद, 15 दिन बाद भेजिए, we will be taking it. But look at, if you do not have the flexibility and the adaptability and the agility in this environment, it will hurt you multiple times, multiple.
Yes.
So, and the multiple such illustrations, that's so right. So that, to my mind, is the biggest skill set. And this is also the time to have people who are low on arrogance, because arrogance will prevent you from cooperating with people. You need to cooperate even with your competition, with everybody. It's a crisis. Nobody has seen a crisis of this magnitude.
Yes. No, thank you, Himanshu.
Do we have any more questions on the table, or shall we call it a day? Yeah. So it seems we've come to the end of this webinar, and we really enjoyed having you, Himanshu. As you can,
My pleasure.
So many things we would have loved to have talked more about, or maybe in one of our future interactions somewhere we'll catch up on that. Please stay safe, and thank you once again.
Thank you, Himanshu.
You too. Thank you so much for having me. It was wonderful chatting.